Welcome back. With 2016 just 10 days away, major companies are making plans to take on major topics such as tax reform and M&A in the new year. One sector expecting big moves, pharma. Joining us now in a Fox Business exclusive is the chairman and CEO of Merck, Kenneth Frasier. Ken, it's great to see you.
It's always great to be here, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. First, I want to ask you about the pipeline, about tax reform, about what you're expecting. But let me begin on 2016. What kind of a year would you expect?
We're excited to be moving into 2016. Our pipeline continues to move forward. We have exciting things going on in the immuno-oncology area with Keytruda. We're looking forward to launching our hepatitis C doublet, which we think will be a highly competitive product in an area of great unmet need. So 2016 will continue to be a year in which we're advancing our pipeline and launching new products.
So you've got a great pipeline for the year, and that certainly is a positive for earnings. Overall, in terms of the economy, what do you see in 2016?
Well, 2016, the world's going to continue to have its challenges. We see oil going down because people see Europe as having problems growing. The United States, I think our economy is the strongest in the world. China continues to have some issues, but overall, we see a pretty solid, placid state for our business going forward. There's still demand because there's huge unmet medical need. You
mentioned Keytruda as one of the big drugs that will accelerate growth.
Yes.
Why is this such an important drug?
Well, this is a new category of drugs that stimulates the body's immune system. And over the weekend, we had some pretty remarkable data come out with respect to lung cancer. So, with respect to people who are the sickest lung cancer patients, we now know using Keytruda will extend their life by approximately 13 months on average. We know that it will reduce the risk of death by 30 to 40% for people who had failed on standard chemotherapy. That is a huge breakthrough.
That is a huge breakthrough. So where are we in the fight against cancer? Lung cancer in particular is one of the killers out there that we have been unable to gain as much traction on as something like, for example, prostate cancer.
So drugs like Keytruda, we've had a big advance, but we're just at the beginning of understanding how to harness the body's immune system to fight malignant disease. So I would expect over the next 15, 20 years that we have a possibility of doing for cancer what we did for HIV, which 20 years ago was a killer, and now for most people, it is not a death sentence.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's so important to look at the growth of the important drugs at Merck and throughout the industry because they are game changers.
Absolutely.
In terms of the world. Let me ask you about the mergers and acquisitions activity in your sector. Last week on the program, we had the CEO of Allergan, and he was telling us about the deal with Pfizer, that they will headquarter in Ireland, that they will have a much lower tax rate. Does this become more of an impetus for you to get even bigger because your competitor is getting bigger, becoming the largest drug maker?
Well, first of all, we're an American company. We're proud to be an American company. I think that size is not the key to innovation. Scale doesn't confer an innovation advantage. So we're not looking to be big for big's sake, nor are we looking to do a deal primarily to change our tax rate. But what I will say is that U.S.-based pharmaceutical companies are at a structural disadvantage in the global competition for IP assets, for talent, for capital.
Yeah, but I mean, right now, you see politicians saying, we're going to make it much harder for an American company to merge or acquire an overseas company just for tax reasons. Why not just go back to the source and change the tax code?
Well, I think that's what we have to do. We need a tax code that doesn't put U.S. companies at a disadvantage. And that means lowering the statutory rate. And it also means, importantly, going to a territorial system. The U.S. is the only country, at least the only advanced country, that wants to tax ex-U.S. revenue as though it had been taking place in the U.S. And companies like Merck, companies like Apple, all face the double taxation penalty if they bring their offshore cash to the United States.
Which is why you heard Tim Cook from Apple on 60 Minutes over the weekend basically saying it's hogwash. He used a different word. But basically, it's not true that Apple doesn't pay its taxes. It does, but it's not going to overpay.
Well, I think he had a very strong position on that, and I think he's absolutely right. And I believe we will eventually get comprehensive tax reform because it's one of the issues that I think people on both sides of the aisle agree on that our tax system puts American companies at a disadvantage.
What do you think is behind all of the deal making that we've seen in your sector? In a world where we're growing 2%, is it as simple as, 2% economic growth, you've got to acquire growth, so you want to acquire other companies, and perhaps it includes getting a lower tax rate, but it's also about overall revenue growth?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things. First of all, it's an exciting time in the industry. We're seeing a renaissance in terms of important new products coming to market. And so some of these deals, on Merck's part, are to get the best science going forward. I think other companies are looking to grow through synergies, through consolidation. And I think each company has a different strategy for how to grow in a tough growth environment.
One of your very important products, obviously, top drug, Januvia, 16% of sales. Give us a sense of that and where the growth is there, given the fact that you've got other companies coming out, Eli Lilly with a competing product, trying to take some of your market share.
Well, so far what we have seen is that the competitive products in that class are redistributing in that class, but not taking share away from Januvia. Januvia continues to grow. The volume growth of Januvia continues to be very strong, and we look forward to continuing that growth next year. We have very good data showing that Januvia is both a safe product as well as a product that's highly efficacious, and doctors know it.
And let's not forget, these are wide margin, high margin drugs. In terms of the pipeline, how do you characterize it for the next couple of years?
Well, we're very excited by our pipeline. We have a number of drugs coming through in the next couple of years. We see the opportunity to grow Merck's top line through innovation. And Merck will be 125 years old next year. And what has always made Merck successful is translating that cutting-edge science into medically important products. And we're going to continue to do that.
You and I were having a conversation a couple of months ago, and I remember you said something that really resonated with me, and that it was about an Alzheimer's drug. Because we know that at this point there is no cure for Alzheimer's. What are the stats? When we live to, what, 85,
you have a 1 in 3. When
1
you
in
live to
3
be
chance
65,
you'll get Alzheimer's.
65, it's 1 in 9. If we don't get a disease-modifying agent in Alzheimer's, it will cost the U.S. economy $1 trillion in 2050. That's not that far away.
So let me tell you where I was going with that. This whole idea about regulating drug prices. Look, we know that there are profiteers in some areas of every industry, by the way.
Right.
We know that there are profiteers in the drug sector as well. But when you have a drug on the market that's actually moving the needle on something like Alzheimer's, how do you decide what to charge for it?
Well,
you let the markets take control.
Well, what we do at Merck is we believe in responsible pricing. So we look at what is the advantage that this drug has over prior therapies, what price will allow patients to have access, also what value are we bringing to the healthcare system, and what will allow us to sustain the R&D to find the next important breakthrough. So we try to optimize the prices. We don't think about maximizing prices.
Right.
We think that there's a reason to be socially responsible and to take the long view.
And if you've got a free market, at least you've got others who are in the market that will compete, and that will also set prices.
That's
obviously
an important issue.
Yeah.
I think people look at the list price and they talk about the list price. They don't see that the market actually incentivizes other people to bring competitive products to market. That's what we're doing in hepatitis C right now, bringing a very good product to market that will compete with the market leader.
Are you going to be investing more in R&D in the coming year?
Yeah, we absolutely will continue to invest at a very high rate because we have a great pipeline, and we think it's responsible of the company to drive that pipeline forward for society.
Ken, Merck is doing such important work. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Maria, it's always a pleasure. Happy holidays.
And to you, happy holidays. Ken Frasier joining us, CEO at Merck. We'll be right back.